You're leading the HR function right now, and you've coached so many leaders over your entire career. I'm wondering if there is one behavior or trait that you've seen more often than not that tends to derail a leader's career or work against them.
That's interesting. I think I'm trying to think of I'm trying to think about the positive frame on the trait of stubbornness. The idea of being a little too fixed in your ways and in the way of doing things. I think my career for the most part has been in healthcare, as I think the other leaders have been that you've been interviewing. And so healthcare, I think, is among, if not the sort of most complex system that exists in the work world. To believe that there's one way of doing things, I think, is a limiting belief. And so, I've seen people run into trouble when they become a little too anchored in their own way of doing things and believing that it's their job as a leader to get people to fall in line or to get people to, so many conversations, I don't know how to get them to see, right? I don't know how to get them to do X, Y, or Z, right? And of course, easy to challenge someone on that, on that belief,
Yeah. It reminds me of this saying, it says, we are human beings, not human doings.
Yeah, that's good.
How would you describe yourself as a leader? What does leadership mean to you?
I think it's funny, for someone who's given so much thought to the idea of leadership, it still doesn't feel straightforward to answer that question. Despite all the years of thinking about and working in the area of leadership and leadership development, I guess the first thing I think about when I think about leadership is and it's a popular idea, but that leadership is not just about a position or a role or a title. From a relatively young age, I think I've always thought about leadership as a set of behaviors, as a way of being. It's an idea that I've sort of clung pretty strongly to throughout my career, and I guess sort of paradoxically not thinking about it as a position has ended up leading to a number of roles of increased responsibility over the course of my career.
Yeah, and as a leader, where you are today and that course that you've taken, it's so important to be self-aware and know our own strengths, our own weaknesses. And as an executive coach yourself, you're an expert at guiding others to find their strengths, their weaknesses. How do you do that for yourself? How are you aware of your own blind spots and where you might need to be more self-aware or change?
I think always sort of holding on to the idea that you've never really arrived or never figured it out, I think has always felt pretty important to me. I guess that idea is sort of linked to, a growth mindset generally, the idea that we've got so much to learn, so many different ways to continue to grow and develop, that, nothing is fixed. We're constantly learning, we're constantly growing. It's a choice, it's active, and it's not supposed to be easy. I think it's hard, it's a challenge. I think part of that process is about, actively soliciting feedback in an ongoing way, keeping a coach in the workplace, a therapist outside the workplace. I think these are the kinds of practices that, for me personally, allow me to continue to grow and develop, challenge myself, challenge my assumptions, learn from mistakes, continue to hold that growth mindset, I think.
And how does one minimize that stigma associated with, getting a therapist or a coach? Because traditionally coaching was for performance or for compliance. Yeah.
That's a good question. I think it starts by just sort of seeing the results. Right. I mean, however you find your way into that kind of practice for yourself, working with a coach or working with a therapist in an ongoing way, whatever gets you there is fine, whether it's some kind of crisis or urgent situation or a developmental opportunity. But I think once you're there, the results speak for themselves. That's my experience anyway, and certainly the experience for those that I've had the privilege to coach and work with. I think it's about seeing those results, having the experience of those light bulbs going off, those new insights, increased awareness of the impact that you're having on other people, the impact that other people are having on you, the things that are strengths, the things that are limitations or triggers. I think to continue to become aware of that is an amazing experience. If anyone chooses to be blind to those things or just want to carry on the way that feels most comfortable, that's okay too. Right. I think it might have been in one of my coaching courses or leadership course prior to that. The expression of like growth happens at the edges. At the edge of your development, at the edge of your current comfort zone. That's where you can grow. So if you're just always staying in the most comfortable place you can, you're sort of limiting yourself to the growth that's possible, I think.
Yeah, it's so true. And once you experience coaching, I think it's hard to ever get rid of it in your life. You've seen the power of it. So I wonder how we could leverage the power of coaching to organizations and to healthcare in general. Typically, a lot of organizations provide coaching at the VP level and above. Is there a way to spread it to the rest of the organization?
Yeah, that's another great question. I think I learned this about leadership development also. I think sometimes it's helpful to not be too bound to the labels or the definitions that can sometimes confine our ideas of what's possible, and are open to criticism and people's own personal experience. I think the more we can embed a coaching approach or a coaching discipline into the way we work. So it's less about, do you want to have a coaching conversation or do you need to see a coach, and more about all of our managers know what coaching is and how to bring that to bear with their teams and their colleagues, and employees in an organization know that part of working here is about pushing your own boundaries and being in a constant learning process with yourself and with the people around you, and it's our job as leaders to develop those that are around us. It's not like an optional thing. It's not like, I'll manage when I have to, and most of the time, and then if someone needs something developmentally, then we can give that to them. If we saw that sort of coach approach as the way that we do things around here, right? Which is sort of the way that I think about organizational culture, right? The way that we do things, what we think, what we believe, the way we behave. If we can just sort of embed that into our everyday work, then that's how it becomes a part of the experience.
Yeah, that's so true. It's sort of part of your culture, part of something you do naturally versus being asked to do something or